All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's Union Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal speaking about how government's policy initiatives have also given a push to the ecosystem, and to decode some of those policy developments that have given a push to the ecosystem and more, and what's next for India's startup ecosystem. I'm now joined by Sanjay Nayar, the founder and chairman of Serene Investments. Thank you very much, Mr. Nayar, for joining us here on ET Now. First things first, since we are talking, even as Startup India completes 9 years, how do you really view these past years of entrepreneurship revolution in the country, the journey to over 100 unicorns and over 1 lakh startups? How do you really view the entrepreneurial ecosystem's progress, specifically when we talk in value terms?
I think the last 9 years has been, looking back, very, very gratifying for the country, because it's not by accident that you've had the massive acceleration of the startup ecosystem. And it's a confluence of the work done by the policymakers, the work done by the entrepreneurs, and of course the investors' keenness on India. But I think most of all of this was given a lot of body by the Prime Minister and the Commerce and Industry Minister, with DPIT giving shape to Startup India initiative, catalyzing SIDBI to create a fund of funds. And if you just look at the multiplier effect of all those things coming together, is really what's resulted in this 9 years. And in 9 years, you have 100 plus unicorns. You have nearly 20 billion on an average coming in every year. And you also have the advent of a more active participation from local investors. So all of this, I think, is the result of what has happened in 9 years. And I think we have another decade ahead, which can be very exciting.
All right, so decade ahead, which could be very exciting. And of course, we'll be looking forward to how India really makes its place and solidifies its place, especially as far as new age tech areas are concerned, whether it's quantum computing, whether it's AI, and of course, data centers. But Mr. Nayar, let me ask you one quick question on the kind of geopolitical shifts that we are seeing happen globally. The most important one currently underway in the United States. You have a regime change coming in just the next 5 days. So there are concerns over deployment of capital, and a similar view on financing of the ecosystem was shared by IT Secretary this morning, that risk-taking funds should be incentivized. Would you agree with that view?
Not much of a geopolitical expert, but my reading is that I think the world does become a lot more insular. I think we have to look out for ourselves. Sorry, I did not know what statement the secretary had made, but I would say that we have to inculcate and we have to invigorate the local fundraising and the local funds industry a lot more. And I'm not referring to mutual funds, I'm referring to AIFs and risk-taking ability of all kinds of funds that are going to be very critical to catalyze the startup ecosystem, which, as I said, is, has been great for 9 years, but it's still quite small. And the kind of funds you need in India, you have to pick up from what the world has done. You will need more venture debt. You will need more angels and seed. You will also need, secondaries. You need continuous funds. You need all kinds of funds in the future if you want to really be able to grow this sector. And I'm not sure what policy changes are really required. A lot has been done. For example, angel tax was done last year. Hopefully, ESOPs get tackled this year. But more than that, it's about the consistency of the policies and taxation, which I think has been there more or less. And look, at the end of the day, Sumita, ultimately what matters is the underlying growth and the fact that you can have much easier exits now, given what a mature IPO market.
All right, sir, I'd like to expand a bit more on the financing bit that you spoke about to catalyze the startup ecosystem. I mean, in terms of, a fund of funds, when you look at government's initiatives, there is that fund of funds, is then, of course, the PE and VC ecosystem as far as funding is concerned. But how can financing, you've spoken about it, but how can it be made more robust for the ecosystem, particularly for new age sectors like you have quantum computing, AI, deep technology? Because let's accept it, 75% of capital is still coming from abroad. Is that the financing bit? Is that something that you're taking up as part of budget recommendations?
We already finished our pre-budget inputs. So frankly, there's not much to talk about it. You're not many days away from the budget. The only recommendation that I remember that we made, and that was more on my ASSOCHAM platform, was that credit flow to the MSMEs has to increase. So it wasn't much to do with startups per se. And for the MSMEs to get a lot more credit, the banks have to give them credit. And a little bit like the CGT SME scheme in the COVID time, which was very effective for banks to be able to lend and to take risk. I think we need a similar fund which can drive the banks and encourage them to lend to the NBFCs and other fintech companies. And fintech definitely will benefit from that because they are the ones who are using digital models and feet on street to finish the last mile lending. So I think besides that, I don't really know what else one can do. I mean, there was an allocation of 1,000 crores on innovation last time. You can have a lot of these 1,000, 2,000 crore allocation, but frankly, it's up to the local AIFs, and we need more local fund managers, more local funds from family offices, corporate balance sheets, banks, pension funds to come in if you really want to make this a pretty Atmanirbhar kind of funding ecosystem.
Absolutely, sir, and I agree with you. In terms of programs, and we were just talking about it a little while back, in terms of programs and initiatives the government has been talking about, and several ministers from the present dispensation have been talking about the initiatives that have been taken up by the government over these past 9 years, of course, which is, also seen a rise in unicorns and the number of startups coming out of India. So you have the National Quantum Mission, you have the AI Mission, you also have the Semiconductor Mission, and of course, the allocation of 1 lakh crores for R&D. But the big question really is how much of these programs have really helped giving a push to the formation of quality startups in the country?
Sumita, frankly, I don't know. So I don't want to give you a vague answer.
Okay.
I'm not much in the know of the numbers.
Okay.
But I would say when you say quality startups, what comes to my mind is the quality of the founders, the quality of the business model, and then ultimately founders is equal to execution and good governance. Okay. So quality is a very broad word, but in my experience, good quality startups that have become good quality businesses, at least they tried, even if they haven't succeeded, it's with sincerity and passion that these entrepreneurs have. They've got to build a model that is a real business model and have some real governance around it.
Right, sir. And one final question before we let you go, because the one thing that the government has stated over and over again is how startups are enabling solutions to real life challenges. And perhaps there's a push that really needs to be given to startups in smaller towns and cities where innovation is also happening. How do you really assess that ecosystem in terms of the opportunity that has shaped up in the past few years? And what kind of push can now be given by the VC and PE ecosystem in terms of giving a boost to these founders?
Yeah, I think, look, it's a completely free market. I don't think you can keep directing things. There's already a push towards, and rightly so, towards women entrepreneurs. You can't keep directing money just for the sake of it, okay? The entrepreneurs have to have a platform where they can come from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. They know where to go. They know who to contact. And I think the Startup Mahakumbh that we have in 25 provides a fantastic platform for people to know who to approach, where to go. There is Startup India, which is there. There is Invest India. There is DPIT. There's enough enabling ecosystem. The rest depends upon the entrepreneurs to come out and try to seek these initiatives. So I think that's about it. I don't think you can keep directing money towards different things. It's just not the right policy.
On that note, thank you very much, sir, for joining us here on ET Now. You rightly stated some of those schemes have really helped, and of course, there are several government departments as well that are looking at giving a boost. But will that be sufficient? Will that be enough? And what's coming up in the upcoming union budget? We'll be keeping a close watch on that. But thank you very much for joining us here on ET Now. And ladies and gentlemen,